The House will come to order. Messages from the Senate.
Madam Speaker, I hereby announce the passage by the Senate of the following House file herewith returned as amended by the Senate, in which amendments to concurrence of the House is respectfully requested. House File Number 148, an act relating to health. Message is signed Cal R. Ludeman, Secretary of the Senate. Hewitt moves that the House refuse to concur in the Senate amendments to House File Number 148, that the Speaker appoint a conference committee of 3 members of the House, and that the House requests that a like committee be appointed by the Senate to confer on the disagreeing votes of the 2 houses.
Representative Hewitt.
Sorry, Madam Speaker, the bill does not concur.
This is your motion, right? All right. All those who agree with the Hewitt motion, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. The motion prevails.
A message from the Senate. Madam Speaker, I hereby announce the passage by the Senate of the following House file, herewith returned as amended by the Senate, in which amendments to concurrence of the House is respectfully requested. House File Number 653, an act relating to legacy. The message is signed Cal R. Ludeman, Secretary of the Senate. Lilly moves that the House refuse to concur in the Senate amendments to House File Number 653, that the Speaker appoint a conference committee of 5 members of the House, and that the House requests that a like committee be appointed by the Senate to confer on the disagreeing votes of the 2 houses.
Representative Lilly.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This is my motion. This is a legacy bill. We have a couple differences we need to work on, and appreciate your support.
All those in favor of the Lilly motion, please say aye. Those opposed, please say no. The motion prevails.
Message from the Senate. Madam Speaker, I hereby announce the passage by the Senate of the following House file herewith returned as amended by the Senate, in which amendments to concurrence of the House is respectfully requested. House File Number 1244, an act relating to natural resources. The message is signed Cal R. Ludeman, Secretary of the Senate. Hansen moves that the House concur in the Senate amendments to House File Number 1244, and that the bill be repassed as amended by the Senate.
I recognize the author, Representative Hansen, who will explain the Senate amendments.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. This is the Drainage Work Group bill, which passed off the floor of the House with 100 votes. The Senate made 2 changes. One was a technical change where they, believe, used the word article instead of section. And then they provided a sunset on a provision for sediment delivery.
Discussion to the Senate amendments. Representative Backer.
Yeah, members, Madam Speaker and members, though I like the Senate amendment, one of the things that concerns me about this bill is if you look into the policy, it is a form of taxation without representation just because of the language. It talks about that the potential of, it deals with drainage laws. So if, especially in my area, because we're so flat, that if there is runoff that goes into the drainage ditch, it has the potential to be taxed, and they're not even part of that ditch association or that taxing district. So with that, I am not going to support this. I was not here that day that this was originally on there. So it's taxation without representation, and I remember this country fought a war against that. So thank you, members.
Any further discussion on the Senate amendments? Representative Anderson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I too agree with what Representative Backer said. Gotten some comments and calls from back home that putting in this fairly controversial piece, at least controversial to some folks, allowing for assessments to be made if people don't actually belong to the ditch authority is a little bit problematic to me, and I also oppose that portion of the bill. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
There being no further discussion, all those in favor of the motion to concur with the Senate amendments say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. The motion prevails. The clerk will give the bill its 3rd reading as amended by the Senate.
3rd reading, House File Number 1244, as amended by the Senate.
Third reading as amended by the Senate. Discussion on the bill. Seeing no discussion on the bill, the clerk will take the roll. Members, please vote. The clerk will close the roll. There being 94 ayes and 33 nays, the bill is repassed as amended by the Senate and its title agreed to.
Messages from the Senate. Madam Speaker, I hereby announce the passage by the Senate of the following Senate files herewith transmitted. Senate file numbers 322, 753, 1706, 2081, and 2089. The message is signed Cal R. Ludeman, Secretary of the Senate.
First reading of Senate files.
First reading Senate file number 322, an act relating to human services. Sandell moved that Senate file number 322 and House file number 1221, now on the General Register, be referred to the Chief Clerk for comparison.
Without objection, so ordered.
First reading Senate file number 753, an act relating to driving while impaired. The bill is being referred to the Public Safety and Criminal Justice Reform Finance and Policy Division. First reading Senate file number 1706, an act relating to civil actions. Davids moved that Senate file number 1706 and House file number 2065, now on the General Register, be referred to the Chief Clerk for comparison.
Without objection, so ordered.
First reading Senate file number 2081, an act relating to health. Zerwas moved that Senate file number 2081 and House file number 2027, now on the General Register, be referred to the Chief Clerk for comparison.
Without objection, so ordered.
First reading Senate file number 2089, an act relating to human services. Kosnick moved that Senate file number 2089 and House file number 2252, now on the General Register, be referred to the Chief Clerk for comparison.
Without objection, so ordered. Announcement by the Speaker.
The Speaker announces the appointment of the following members of the House to a conference committee on House File number 653, an act relating to legacy. Lilly, Murphy, Waslawick, Hansen, and Bowe.
Report from the Committee on Rules and Legislative Administration.
Winkler from the Committee on Rules and Legislative Administration, pursuant to Rules 1.21 and 3.33, designates the following bills to be placed on the calendar for the day for Monday, May 13, 2019, and establishes a pre-filing requirement for amendments offered to the following bills. House file numbers 2097 and 2515, and Senate file number 326.
Calendar for the day. The first bill on the calendar for the day is House File 1262. The clerk will report the bill.
House file number 1262, number 2 on the calendar for the day, an act relating to health occupations, the first engrossment.
I recognize the member from Ramsey, Representative Moran, to explain your bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. House File 1262 is a bill that makes technical changes to the chapter and statute that governs the Board of Marriage and Family Therapy. The mission of the Board of Marriage and Family Therapy is to protect the public through effective licensures and enforcement of the statutes and rules governing the practice of marriage and family therapists in order to ensure a standard of competence, and ethical practice. House File 1262 was heard and discussed in Mann Committee, Health and Human Service Policy, on March the 27th. This bill removes, updates, and clarifies various outdated provisions throughout the chapter, but does not make any substantial changes to the law. These changes were recommended by nonpartisan House research and the Office of the Reviser. Thank you so much, and I encourage a green vote. I would love to have every green vote. Thank you so much.
There are no amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, House File number 1262.
Third reading. Discussion to the bill. Discussion to the bill. Seeing none, the clerk will take the roll. Members, please vote. The clerk will close the roll. There being 130 ayes and 0 nays, the bill is repassed and its title agreed to. The next bill on the calendar for the day is Senate File 278. The clerk will report the bill.
Senate File number 278, number 3 on the calendar for the day, an act relating to the health care.
I recognize the author of the bill, the member from Dakota, Representative Mann, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, members. Senate File 278 deals with the licensure and transparency of the pharmacy benefit managers, or PBMs. A pharmacy benefit manager functions as a middleman between the drug manufacturer and the health carrier or the pharmacy. Initially, they were hired to make deals with the manufacturer, buy in bulk and get the lowest prices for prescription medications, and pass that price down to the patient. Unfortunately, in many cases, that is not the case anymore. So what is happening now is that the PBM will go to the manufacturer and say, I will put your drug on the formulary, which is the list of medications that gets to the patient, and I will keep your competitors off of this list, but I will need a incentive to do that. And so they get what we call a kickback. And that can be a flat fee, or it can be a percentage of the drug that they place on the formulary. Because of this, in order for the manufacturers to keep their profit margin, they have to increase the price of the drug. And because of these incentives, PBMs can also choose more expensive drugs to put on the formularies, choosing brand name drugs versus the generic drugs, which of course increases the price of the drug for the patient. These practices have only been intensifying over the last several years, as we now have a system that has been monopolized by only 3 PBMs, who own now over 75% of the business. These 2 practices have 2 significant outcomes. One is cost, like I touched upon already, and the second result, which is most important to me, is the medical outcomes. When a formulary is changed, the patient has to start a new drug. This means that medical decisions are being made not because they are medically necessary, not because the doctor wants them to change, not because the patient wants them to change, but they are being made for monetary reasons. When a medication changes, patients now have to come back to the office for repeat blood work to make sure they're not having new side effects, to make sure the medication is working. They have to miss work and potentially need childcare. Of course, this increases the cost of healthcare as a whole. So PBMs are essentially making some very big medical decisions that directly impact patient care in the state of Minnesota, and they're doing this without any oversight. So one of the many things that this bill will do is to license PBMs. Nurses, doctors, manufacturers, hospitals, everyone is licensed to practice in the state except for the PBMs. This bill will require transparency in the dealings of the PBMs, What rebates did you get? How much were you charged for that drug? What did you pay the pharmacy for that drug? Where is the money going? This bill will prohibit PBMs from shortchanging pharmacies, which are really impacting our family-owned pharmacies in the state. They'll prohibit PBMs from charging a patient a higher cost at the point of sale, will allow patients to synchronize their medications, which will make their lives easier, and will allow the pharmacist to discuss cheaper alternatives with the patient. This is a really great bipartisan bill. It will bring accountability and transparency to a very obscure player in our healthcare system. It will put pressure on PBMs to have more fair dealing practices and will bring down the cost of prescription drugs. I ask for your support.
No amendments.
There are no amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, Senate File Number 278.
Third reading. Discussion to the bill. Representative Munson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I guess I do have a question for the bill's author. We're voting on the Senate file. We're not using the House language. Is that?
She will yield. Representative Mann.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So it's called the Senate file, but in the last committee stop, we adopted the House language for our version.
Representative Munson.
Okay, thank you, Madam Speaker. I guess I'm working off of the second engrossment of the House File 278, but I do want to clarify that under Section 4, that it still has the language that the pharmacy benefit manager has a fiduciary duty to the health carrier. Okay, so I'm getting a nod from the bill's author. I had a concern in committee when I heard this language because I know in my private sector job I deal with clients having a fiduciary duty, but the fiduciary duty is always to the client or the customer and not to another health carrier, which is what it is listed in this bill. So I know that there's language that's going to be worked out in conference committee, but I have a hard time with the pharmacy benefit manager, the PBM, having, to keep control on the fiduciary, the bottom line for another private entity. And we really should be focusing when we create legislation that's going to be bringing price transparency to the pharmaceutical industry, that it's good that we do this for the benefit of the patient or the enrollee. And I do support many provisions of this bill. There's legislation that I carried last year on removing the gag order for pharmacies and allowing patients to go to the pharmacy and actually see what things cost. And that's really important. If we're going to be lowering the cost of pharmaceuticals in this country, it's so very important that people understand what the costs are, not just to their copays, but to the underlying health insurance plan, because our health insurance costs are just a collection of what the healthcare costs are rolled into one. So understanding the differences between generics and name brand drugs and the actual cost of the insurance pool is so very important. And so Representative Mann, and thank you for authoring this bill. And there's some small provisions in this bill that I disagree with. I do support the bill and its purpose, and I hope we can really drive some change. I do want to say that I don't typically vote for regulations and creating a whole level of bureaucracy on an industry. And I consider myself a capitalist, and I support the innovation that's driven through free market companies and not just running things by the government. But the pharmacy benefit managers are doing, and what they've done to this pharmaceutical industry is not capitalism. This is crony capitalism. This is buying legislation that allowed them to operate and control pricing in this industry to drive the cost of pharmaceuticals up and to profit from that. And so this is a result. When you take advantage of legislation to mask pricing from the consumers, this is the repercussion. You get regulations on your industry. And this is a necessary regulation and a necessary level of bureaucracy to bring price transparency to the public. And I hope that we can do more to allow consumers to see these individual kickbacks and that we work it out in committee so that it's not just at a general PBM level for their costs, but we can actually drive it down to give the information to the insurance carrier so they can see how their customers, their patients, are being driven to buy name brand pharmaceuticals over generics. So Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I urge you to vote yes on this bill.
The member from Stearns, Representative O'Driscoll.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I, too, also believe that there are a number of provisions in this bill that offer reform that are needed in the pharmaceutical industry and in the way that we provide services to Minnesotans as it relates to health care. My number one hang-up on this bill and why I'm going to be voting no today is the provisions that deal with fiduciary responsibilities. Very quickly, contract law is at one level. I enter into a contract with someone, I expect that they're going to be acting in good faith, that they're also going to be behaving within the confines of the law. In a fiduciary relationship, all of those things are required. Plus. And the plus on this is that you have to advocate wholly, solely, and exclusively on behalf of one individual. So the concern that I have, and I've heard it from members in this chamber, I've heard it from members in this chamber on both sides of the aisle. They have questions about insurance, healthcare insurers, denying claims, denying medical access, limiting the number of trips that one can have for certain kinds of services and the like. And we pound the desk and we pound the table and say, this just isn't right. This just isn't right. What this bill does is this bill moves a fiduciary obligation for the pharmacies, for the pharmaceuticals, I should say, to enter into a fiduciary relationship with the healthcare insurance providers. My question is, do we move the problem from one area to another if those who believe that the insurance company is getting between the patient and their doctor? Does this help or does this hurt that relationship by amping up the requirements for the pharmaceuticals with the health insurance provider? If you believe that there's already too much that the insurance companies are doing to limit access to health care, to limit access to patient needs, how does this fix that problem? It doesn't. Again, I do believe that there are very important provisions that are found in this bill in an area that needs some shoring up and some regulation, but not with the fiduciary. That's problematic. I believe if this bill becomes law, the way it's written right now, there'll be some people who will be happy with the provisions that are in there, but we will be right back here on this chamber floor, 1, 2, maybe 3 years from now, pounding the table once again, those who say healthcare insurers are getting in the way of doctor and patient relationships. They're limiting the amount of, this time instead of medical procedures, pharmaceutical options. I used to have, now I have to have. All the things that Representative Mann had talked about, having to go back, have blood work to see how this is working with your others, I think you're just simply moving it from one group of people to another. It doesn't solve that part of the problem. Members, I wish I could be voting yes for this today. Again, as I said, I think this area is ripe for some reform. But I really have heartburn over the fiduciary responsibilities. Once again, it's higher than contract law. Right now, we have a problem with contract law, as some would say, with the healthcare insurer receiving a contract and entering into a contract. Why do we think it's going to be better if we amp up the relationship and make it a fiduciary relationship? Please, members, vote no. Thank you.
The member from Scott, Representative Albright.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, Representative O'Driscoll and I have a somewhat unique experience from a financial perspective with regard to the fiduciary responsibility. Representative O'Driscoll laid out, I think, one of the issues with the fiduciary responsibility. Let me share with you another one. Right now in state statute, there is no definition for a fiduciary as it would pertain to this subject matter. And so I think that in the light of trying to impose a financial level of fiduciary responsibility on the medical community, as Representative O'Driscoll has stated, you're trying to put a round peg in a square hole. Now, if you go to the federal level, I know we don't have to really argue about this, but if you went to the federal, because the bill itself says the state or federal definitions. If you go to the federal level, and then you're dealing with ERISA, another subject matter that probably only few in this chamber appreciate, Representative O'Driscoll, you have 3 different levels of fiduciary responsibility, none of which pertain to this subject matter. Which brings me to my next point. In the bill, it talks about rulemaking, but it also talks about the prohibition of providing licenses after a set time. I believe it's January 1st of 2020. That would literally give the Department of Commerce 5 months to put rulemaking in place before they could provide licenses. Representative Mann, as you take this into conference committee, I hope that you consider correcting those provisions so that they align. In most cases, rulemaking under this is going to take a lot longer than 5 months. And there is going to be a gap if that is not corrected. I share the concerns that Representative O'Driscoll has enumerated here. On the balance, there are a couple other issues that I would like to talk about as well. In the bill, it talks about the prohibition against mail order pharmacies. While I understand the self-serving nature of having a mail order pharmacy attached to a PBM, what we also need to ascribe to is that the Department of Defense also found through their mail order pharmacy that there was a 23 times greater accuracy rate in the delivery of those prescriptions, plus it actually drove down the cost of those prescriptions. Please consider that, Representative Mann. Maybe one of the larger issues that I think needs to be addressed as you walk into conference committee is the issue of data collection. Under the bill, you will collect information on every single prescription issued in the state of Minnesota. I think that the number is roughly 57 million prescriptions. And by what you have in your bill, Representative Mann, that list isn't short in terms of the data collected. It is voluminous. Now, while we appreciate the need for disaggregation, for redacting the potential for privacy, I also believe that you have way too much in terms of information for anyone to digest. And so the pertinence of any one of those pieces of information should be considered, particularly in light of the fact that you are going to collect and retain the private prescriptions for Minnesotans, and right now that stands at 57 million different pieces of information. Not only is that cumbersome, but I think, as others in this chamber would probably elaborate on, you've got an IT problem of a magnitude of other nature in terms of security, management, accessibility, and security. So please consider that. The fiduciary responsibility itself has been pointed up, and it's also been provided in 3 other states, none of which has used it efficiently. And in one state, I believe it was Maine, they had it on the books. It was never enforced, and actually they took it off the books because it was not enforceable. So the fiduciary responsibility as a key feature of what you're trying to do is well intended, but I think that you can accomplish the methodology of providing more enforcement against the PBMs without the fiduciary nature of what you're putting in there. Members, when we look at bills, we have to look at them in the balance. The provisions that are well-meaning, the ones that are problematic. As we debate and vote on this going off this floor, I think as I would see it and as Representative O'Driscoll has articulated, the balance shifts this one for me into not voting for because of these provisions. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The member from Cottonwood, Representative Hamilton.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Representative Baker is going to hold me up if I need it. That's what he said, and add a little humor to it, if I will. Friends, this bill's long overdue. I've been working on this for a number of years. You're supposed to keep me from not getting emotional, too. That's your responsibility there, pal. Real people are being harmed, and our small rural pharmacies are being destroyed. And I say it's by pharmacy benefits managers, by PBMs. Again, this is long overdue. I've shared with you my story and how I've been directly impacted, negatively. How the PBM interfered with the delicate situation of my health, and they interfered with what the doctor was prescribing to me. And I've shared it, and I said, I'll blame them. I'll blame them straight out for putting me in a wheelchair. It's wrong. It's absolutely wrong what's taken place, and this needs to be addressed and needs to be reined in. And again, I've shared my story a number of times, and I'm not going to bore you with all the details, but this is one big step in the right direction. We have the opportunity to do the right thing and to represent the people that send us here to make these tough decisions, if you will. Representative Mann, thank you. You've been able to get this bill farther than I have in the past, and I thank you for that. Obviously, this is a big issue and very important to me. Members, I'm simply going to ask for your support. Thank you.
The member from Dakota, Representative Garofalo.
Will the author yield for a couple of questions?
She will yield. Representative Garofalo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And to the author, this is a Senate file, so in your conversations with the Senate author, is your expectation that they will be concurring with the new language or that they'll be requesting a conference committee?
Representative Mann.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I've spoken to the author of the Senate file, and we will conference this bill.
Representative Garofalo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So obviously this is just another step in the process rather than us looking at final passage on this. If the author would yield for another question.
She will yield. Representative Garofalo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And to the author, in the event that government were to step into the responsibilities that existing PBMs are engaged in, would these regulations and these changes apply to government?
Representative Mann.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm not quite sure what you're asking. Are you asking like government-run programs like Medicaid or?
Representative Garofalo.
Madam Speaker, if the author would continue to yield.
She will continue to yield. Representative Garofalo.
Madam Speaker, and to the author, there's been extensive conversations about the government managing their own formulary list and providing some of the traditional roles that PBMs have engaged in. So in that case, would the changes in this bill apply to government? Should government develop their own exclusivity list?
Representative Mann.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. If PBMs are involved, we will require the same data from the PBMs.
Representative Garofalo.
Madam Speaker, if the author would yield.
She will yield. Representative Garofalo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and to the author. I understand that it applies to PBMs. What I'm saying is if the government steps in, which is currently, regardless of people's positions on PBMs, if the government was to step in and assume the role that currently the private sector PBMs are engaging in, would this bill apply to that entity?
Representative Mann.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This bill deals solely with pharmacy benefit managers.
Representative Garofalo.
Madam Speaker and members, I think what that means is that the answer is no. As we see greater movement towards the idea of government model, we see that we're creating yet another incentive to move towards a single-payer healthcare model. For that and other reasons, members, I would ask for a no vote on this bill.
The member from Scott, Representative Vogel.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, author, for the bill. I do believe, as has been spoken to, that a lot of these things are necessary, but I do rise, and I know you're getting sick of hearing the word fiduciary, but dealing in the businesses that I deal in, that has a big connotation. And although it seems like just one word and not a reason to vote against this bill, my concern is that we're making a fiduciary responsibility to health carriers. If the author would yield for a question, Madam Speaker.
She will yield. Representative Vogel.
Thank you. The question I have is in line 8.3, where it says it's a fiduciary responsibility to health care carrier. I'm curious why you put the fiduciary responsibility to the carrier and not to the patient.
Representative Mann.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Well, at this point, the PBM works as a subsidiary or a subcontractor to the health carrier and not the patient directly.
Representative Vogel.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And my concern there is that by doing this, I think we're creating an inherent conflict, because we're telling the PBM that they have a fiduciary responsibility to a healthcare carrier. Therefore, if they're looking at how they're going to either offer the drug or deal with co-pays or deal with other products, their first and foremost and fiduciary responsibility is to the healthcare carrier, not to the patient. And that's why I like the idea of this bill, because it's getting to the patient and giving them information, as well as putting in statute more protections for them. If the author would yield again, Madam Speaker.
She will yield. Representative Vogel.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So I said that I believe that it's going to create an inherent conflict, because we're telling the the benefits manager to have a fiduciary responsibility to the health carrier. Do you see any potential for that to be a conflict with the patient, since the fiduciary responsibility is to the carrier who is actually making a profit off of the insurance product that the patient is paying for?
Representative Mann.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So this is part of the issue, right? It's the chain that goes all the way from the manufacturer or the insurance company all the way down to the patient. And we need to start somewhere to stopping that chain from profit, 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 patient. So right now what we're saying is that we're asking the PBM to have a fiduciary duty to the health carrier, and the health carrier should act in the best interest of the patient. So we're taking one step in that chain to make things better. When we talk about taking steps to make things better, we often hear this narrative of, well, if you're not going to fix the entire problem right now, I'm not behind it. And so I just don't think that holds much water.
Representative Vogel.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Representative.
Members, please be quiet during debate so members can hear one another. Representative Vogel.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I still contend that when we're making the fiduciary responsibility to the healthcare carrier and not to the parent, the patient, and I don't disagree that the carrier has a responsibility to the patient. I'm not so sure it's a fiduciary responsibility. It may be in code. I'm not familiar with all the statutes. But in this case, what we're saying here is that if the PBM has to make a decision, they have a fiduciary responsibility to the healthcare carrier exclusive of the patient, because there's nothing in here that's saying deal with the patient. It's saying deal with the carrier. So, Madam Speaker, members, as much as I would like to vote for this, because I really believe it's a good idea and its time has come, I really think we have to be careful when we use words like fiduciary responsibility, because and especially in this case, where we could be impacting negatively the people that it's meant to help. Thank you.
The member from Olmsted, Representative Quam.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. It's pretty obvious. We all feel there's a need for reform on this part of health care. The big risk when we're all for is that we rush and we don't try to avoid stumbling stones and delays. I think there are some issues in the language that could cause implementation problems. It's been touched on the rulemaking. It's been touched on that part of the language or similar language has been used in other states. I fear that there is litigation risk to part or this whole bill with the current language. I also feel that there's risk in the implementation, and quick implementation is not always the best and most effective, and that we need to implement it so it'll work, so that it won't, in the long run, cause more problems than we're solving, or delay the fact that we actually get a good solution in. And I'm hearing a lot of concern in that we look and try and fix portions of this, and that we're for the idea, but we don't want to go, oh, we've passed something, and the next year or the year after, we're revisiting because we didn't take care of some of these issues. And I hope we look at the issues that are in here. I really hope the debate in the conference committee can solve this, but I don't think the language in the current bill is there yet. Thank you.
The member from Anoka, Representative Scott. The member from Pope, Representative Anderson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. There's a lot of support for this bill, but would the author of the bill yield for a question?
She will yield. Representative Anderson.
Thank you for bringing the bill forward. We all agree that it's badly needed. My concern is that we're in the second to the last week of session, and you're telling us it's going to go to a conference committee. Can you give us some level of assurance that this bill is going to, in fact, come back and not get lost these last hectic days of session? Because, again, a lot of support for it, and want to see it come back and have a final passage. So what level of assurance can you give us that it is going to come back out of conference?
Representative Mann.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So I've been working on this bill since pretty much the moment I got here, and it's one of the main reasons I ran for office. And so if I have anything to say about it, this bill will come back and it will be passed off the floor.
The member from Goodhue, Representative Haley.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And just a few quick comments. I just want to be on record that I support these reforms. And thank you to Representative Hamilton for years of work advocating for patient rights. And to Representative Mann, just as a member of the committee and serving with you on HHS, I know how passionate you are about your patients and about patient rights as well. So I do believe we have a lot of compromise and agreement on most of the components of this bill and all the things that we will do to help with patient rights. And many of the provisions, in fact, were passed last session and were caught up in a veto. So I just want to remind you that you have a lot of support here, Representative Mann, and the comments that were made about the fiduciary language is really the troublesome piece. And so I would encourage just sincere work on that piece so that you can bring it back out of conference and we can have green on the board to help all Minnesotans. Thank you, Representative Mann. Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Speaker.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Howard.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to thank Representative Mann for bringing this bill forward and to Representative Hamilton for your leadership on this issue. This is a fantastic bill. And there's been a lot of discussion this session about the cost of prescription drugs, a lot of legislative efforts that are moving forward. And I believe this bill has the greatest ability to go down the path of making the systemic change that we need in our healthcare system to put patients first. It's the most important bill, I believe. And I'm really optimistic about the conversation we've had this session around prescription drugs. We are doing great work together on a bipartisan basis this session when it comes to the opioid bill, when it comes to our work to address affordable insulin. And I think there is a sea change happening where we're recognizing that the time is now. The time is now to stand up for Minnesotans. We have a responsibility as legislators to stand up for the Minnesotans that are absolutely sick and tired of a system that is not working, a system that is driving up the cost of their prescription drugs and forcing choices that no one should be confronted with. And this bill is an excellent opportunity. And specifically, I want to mention that as we talk about pharmacy benefit managers, these are behemoths. There are essentially three that are controlling the lion's share of the market in Minnesota and across the country. Three of these PBMs that have revenues of over $100 billion a year with a B. And just one of those, when they were releasing their earnings in the last quarter in 2018, highlighted that in the fourth quarter they saw growth of 13%, and for the first time are going to top over $100 billion a year. And you know the reason why? On the strength of higher prices for brand name drugs. That's how the PBM was able to see their earnings skyrocket to levels they haven't seen before. Members, this system needs reform, needs accountability, needs transparency, and this bill is an excellent step. And we absolutely should pass it this session. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Elkins.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've been working in the healthcare industry for about a decade now, and I'm fairly familiar with the business model involved here. The basic business proposition between a pharmacy benefit manager and a health insurance company is that the PBM goes to the insurance company and says, look, we know the pharmacy space backwards and forwards. We're confident that we can negotiate better discounts with the pharmaceutical manufacturers than you can negotiate themselves. And to prove it, we're going to have you pay us by sharing in the cost savings that we're able to negotiate. Okay, so the reason why the PBM should have a fiduciary relationship to the health insurance plan is that because the health insurance plan is the customer. And the nature of the three-way relationship between the pharmaceutical manufacturers, the PBMs, and the healthcare insurers is such that the PBM may be placed in a position between the negotiations that they have with the pharmaceutical manufacturers and the negotiations they have with the health insurers, where the pharmaceutical manufacturer may place them in a position where they've got a conflict of interest. And in those situations, the fiduciary provision in this bill would ensure that where they have a conflict of interest, they have to take the interests of their customer to heart, not necessarily their own, when the manufacturer offers them a deal that might enrich them, but not the work person, the firm that they're working on behalf of. So I don't think we should make that big a deal out of the fiduciary thing. I think it's actually appropriate if you understand the way this part of the industry works. And overall, this is a really great bill. It may not solve everything. This whole value chain is broken, but this is a huge step in the right direction, and I urge everyone to cast a green vote.
The member from Anoka, Representative Scott.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I was interested in what some of Representative Albright's comments were regarding the data, and I did look at the bill, and it does have a reference to Section 13.37 of the Data Practices Act, and it regards trade secret information. And so I'm wondering if the author of the bill would yield to a question?
She will yield. Representative Scott.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And Representative Mann, it talks about the within 60 days upon receipt of the transparency report, the Commissioner shall publish the report from each pharmacy benefit manager to the Department of Commerce's website, with the exception of data considered trade secret information under 13.37. I'm wondering, first of all, did you consult with Representative Lesh, Chair Lesh, to see if this bill would have needed to come to the Judiciary and Civil Law Committee?
Representative Mann.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I did not speak to Representative Lesh about that, but we have been speaking with the PBMs as well as Department of Commerce to really get that language down as far as what is or is not trade secret so that they won't run into any issues.
Representative Scott.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Well, I'm glad to hear that. And if you could just share with the body what you've learned about that, how they are going to classify trade secrets, because what I've learned with the whole trade secret language is that's an end around having to report certain information. And that has happened with some other entities within the healthcare space, shall I say. And it's allowed them to really skirt transparency to the legislature and to the people of the state of Minnesota. So I'm wondering what you've learned in that process about this whole trade secret language, because I don't want it to be an out for them.
She will yield. Representative Mann.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I completely agree with you. I also do not want them to be an out for them. And so this has been a really big topic of conversation, and we're still actually talking about it to this day. We have another meeting tomorrow about it because A, we don't want it to be an out for them, and B, we don't want the Department of Commerce to have any issues either.
Representative Scott.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I'll be interested to see what the outcome of that is. And in all reality, we're probably not going to know until the first report comes in whether they're using that as an end around reporting information or not. It is very concerning. And I understand protecting trade secrets. I do understand why that's in the Data Practices Act, but I also know the history of that within the healthcare space, so that is concerning. But members, I do think this is a good bill for the most part, but I think it still does need work. There are some provisions here that I think do cause some problems with it, and I would hope that we can cast a no vote today in hopes that it will come back better from conference committee. Thank you.
The member from Chisago, Representative New.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. This is really important reform, and I actually signed on as a co-author to the bill. I like it. It's a good bill, but it does need just a little bit of work. There are a couple of things that are particularly concerning. We've talked a lot about the fiduciary responsibility, and I think maybe to put that in a little bit more of layman's terms, what that means is that the PBMs will be looking out for the bottom line of insurers rather than consumers. This is something that needs to be looked at and fixed for final passage. That's a big deal. And let's be clear, that will raise the cost of health care for consumers. So we really need to look at this. We use these big words around here and this legal language, but the bottom line is that this means that the pharmacy benefit managers will be looking out for the bottom line of insurers rather than consumers. That raises the cost of health care. In addition to that, there's some question about the kinds of relationships that the PBMs will be able to enter into. For example, right now they're able to enter into agreements. They're able to make agreements with mail order pharmacies, things like this, that provide better deals for the consumers. Right now, we get situations where if you purchase a 90-day supply of a medication, you can pay 2 copays rather than 3 copays by entering into these deals. There's a the language is not entirely clear, but it appears that may be prevented in the language currently in this bill. And in order to get that 90-day supply, you'll now be paying for 3 co-payments. That is a very direct increase in the cost of health care. Now, at the same time, I think these are relatively minor fixes. These are fixed in the Senate language. I will be voting no on this bill today. And I look forward to this coming back from conference committee cleaned up so that we can have a unanimous vote on this. I think that is what it will be when this language is cleaned up. Thank you.
The member from Rock, Representative Schumacher.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members, and thank you, Representative New, for bringing up some of the points on the mail order pharmacy piece that haven't been talked about too much today. I just want to hit a couple of points on the mail order pharmacy piece and really just raise my concerns based on what the fiscal note had in it there on page 10 of this bill. We talk about the mail order pharmacies and what impact they'll have. And they do talk about, Representative New, the 90 days that you were talking about there, and the changing from the 2 copays to 3 copays, 50% more copays in this if you do the math that way. And so CGIP had raised concern, or MMB raised concerns with CGIP on what kind of costs would be raised because of the copays that are added to that. And they also noted, MMB did on behalf of CGIP, that the use of direct mail does increase patient adherence to the drug regime, and the bill restrictions on that could result, this is what the fiscal note says, could result in lowered adherence and potentially higher cost on the medical side. And if that's what MMB is reporting on behalf of CGIP, members, I would just ask what the rest of the public will also be experiencing from this, and would ask you to vote no today on this bill.
The member from Olmsted, Representative Liebling.
Madam Speaker and members, I rise to respond to a couple things that have been raised. First of all, some time ago there was a question about government doing this, and I want to tell the body that government does this already manages a formulary. I see Representative Garofalo is not on the floor any longer. This was his question, but in our Medicaid fee-for-service program, people who are not on managed care, we already, as a state, directly manage pharmaceuticals. We do it without a PBM, and we do it in a very transparent way with all kinds of public input and public meetings that are held. So there is quite a model for this already, and there is, in fact, a proposal this year to expand this. The governor has this as part of his One Care proposal, a benefit package to put all of our public patients into one pool and manage it the way we do now with our fee-for-service program. So the answer is this would not apply. It wouldn't have to apply because we already do this in a very transparent public way. Secondly, members, I just wanted to rise to respond to some of what I've been hearing here on the floor. Somebody was worried about that this bill is looking out for the bottom lines of insurers. But looking out for the bottom lines of insurers. Members, if you don't want to do that, you should never have passed reinsurance. We took public money, gave it right to the insurers to help their bottom lines. So, boy, that shouldn't be your concern. But okay, I don't think this bill is doing that because, you know, one of the things, too, remember, we have medical loss ratios in the state. So, yeah, we want to cut out the PBMs, which are really skimming a lot of money away from the insurers. That ends up in higher premiums. It raises the cost for the insurers. It ends up as part of higher premiums, not to mention higher out-of-pocket costs for people trying to get the medications they need. And so this bill would help to reduce the cost of insurance. That's a big reason to do this, a big reason to do it. And finally, I just wanted to say, I hear a lot of members saying, oh, I'd like to vote for this bill, but it isn't perfect. I sure like to vote for this. It does a lot of really important things, but isn't perfect. In my experience, if I want what the bill is trying to do and it isn't perfect, I vote for that bill. Because that's how you get a bill to conference committee, not by voting no. Voting no means don't send the bill to conference committee. At least that's what it's always meant to me. So, you know, I suggest to members, if you think this is really important, which obviously a lot of us do, a lot of us realize, on both sides of the aisle in both bodies, a lot of us realize this is a serious problem and it's time to start solving it. I think that will mean a nice green board. There should be a completely green board up there. Not one member should vote no, because that usually means don't send it to conference. It should die here. That's what it means to me. And I would think the public would think that too.
The member from Wright, Representative Lucero.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question is for the bill author, if she would be willing to answer.
She will yield. Representative Lucero.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And to the bill author, I was listening to the exchange between yourself and Representative Scott, and I believe I heard you say that in regards to trade secrets, that language is still under discussion, and you have a meeting tomorrow. So my question to you is, if the bill language is still under discussion tomorrow, do you think it's the best that we vote on it today?
Representative Mann.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I may be new here, but I know this isn't the only bill that's passed off the floor that's still being worked on, so absolutely we should vote on it today.
Representative Lucero.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Would the bill author continue to yield, please?
She will yield. Representative Lucero.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So is this a case where I need to either vote for or against it in order to find out what's in the bill?
Representative Mann.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I didn't hear you, Representative.
Representative Lucero.
Do I need to vote for this bill to find out what's in it?
Representative Mann.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. No, you could just read it.
Representative Lucero.
Madam Speaker, well, you just said, Representative Mann, that the language is still in discussion. So if I read it now and vote on it now, it's going to be different tomorrow potentially. So reading it now doesn't necessarily help me when you've admitted this is still a work in progress. Madam Speaker, would Representative Liebling yield for a question?
She will yield. Representative Lucero.
Madam Speaker, and Representative Liebling, I become increasingly frustrated with your usage of some of the generalizations that you continue to speak about on this floor. The most recent one you just said in your most recent comments was in regards to reinsurance. And you keep saying something to the effect of, you people, you guys, that side. And you and I have had, Madam Speaker, a conversation on reinsurance where I've corrected you. I didn't support it last year, voted against it this year. So, Madam Speaker and Representative Liebling, why do you continue to make errors in your remarks when you generalize?
Representative Liebling no longer wishes to yield. Representative Lucero.
Madam Speaker, point made. Thank you.
The member from Washington, Representative Jurgens.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And many of the comments that I had have already been made, so I won't go into any great detail on any of them. But thank you, Representative Mann, for bringing this forward. This is, in general, a very good bill. With respect to my friend and colleague, Representative Hamilton, for the work that you've done on this in the past, I appreciate that and thank you. My biggest concern is the same as what we've heard, having to do with Section 4 and the fiduciary to the insurers. My fear, as Representative New said, is that it will raise the cost of health care. I see that we have two choices here. We can either vote yes to get this to conference committee and hope that it gets fixed, or we can vote no, knowing that it's going to likely get to conference committee and hope that it gets fixed. I expect and I hope that if and when it does come back from conference committee with the language specific to the fiduciary being responsible to the insurers, that we will have an all-green board. But today, because of that section, I will be voting no, hoping that that language gets cleaned up, because I think that all in all, this is a good bill. All in all, the reforms are much needed. Specifically, I'm happy to see that the gag clause being removed. I think that that's very good and very long overdue. So I will be voting no today, and hopefully when this comes back, we will all be able to vote green on it. Thank you.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Bonner.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, members. First, I want to thank Representative Hamilton. I know that you have put a great deal of effort into this bill, and I know that a lot of that hard work is the result that we see today. I know you're passionate, and I want to thank you for that. I also want to thank Senator Jensen for all of his hard work. This has been a very long but bipartisan effort, and I know that Representative Mann has continued to work tirelessly day after day on really working to refine this language to make it something that we can really vote for and light that board green. This bill is about putting patients first. It's about our seniors. It's about our families, our young families, putting them first. Not second, not third, and definitely not last. That's exactly what the system has been doing, and this is time for reform. This is needed. Members, we know this. This is not going to shock anyone in this room. This is one of the most sweeping reforms we've ever seen on this front. This has been worked on for years. It's time to pass it. It's time to put our patients back in the driver's seat and put money back in the pockets of the real people in our communities that we represent. This bill isn't just about flowery language. It's about real people. And I don't know about all of you in this room, but when I went door to door talking to folks in my district, I heard seniors who are worried that they can't afford to pay their prescription drugs. They're worried about how they're going to manage their expenses, how they're going to manage their health care. These are folks who should be worrying about when they're going to spend their next day out with their grandchildren, not whether they can afford their prescription. These are young families who are worried about putting money on the table and paying for daycare. They can't be put last anymore. That is unacceptable. So, members, I urge you not only to vote green for this because it's time, but because it's time for us to recognize that it is time to put patients back in the driver's seat and put them first. Thank you.
The member from Fillmore, Representative Davids.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I'd like to comment on a couple issues here. The first one is, a couple days ago we had a bill on landlord-tenant relations. I think it had to do with some language from Representative Knorr, I believe it was. And one of the members on this body stood up and said, well, I don't want to hear from landlords or slumlords because I don't want to hear from them because they have a conflict of interest. Here we have a case where we have a medical doctor carrying legislation on medical issues. Now, is that a conflict of interest to the member who brought that up earlier? I'd say no, it's not. I own a farm. When we talk about ag stuff, do I have a conflict of interest because I vote on farm bills or I'm in the financial services business and so on? So I thought that was pretty reckless when that was brought up, saying that landlords, because they're talking on a bill, have a conflict of interest. Of course, that's simply nonsense. Now, as far as the issue of reinsurance worked. It worked beautifully. Instead, there are those, my friends on the other side of the aisle, that want to set up a system, hire 50 people to send checks directly to insurance companies. So obviously that argument has zero merit whatsoever. And then I was a bit perplexed by some of Representative Howard's comments having to do with this bill needs to be passed because the companies we're dealing with are really, really big. Who cares? Who cares about the size of a company? McDonald's is bigger than a PBM, and they put out a really good product that I like, and they made a lot of money off me. A lot. So I don't understand the logic of because a company is big, it's bad, because that's not the case. Now, on this bill, there's some really bad things in this bill, but there's a lot of really good things in here, too. And so I think you have to just I'm voting for the bill today. Hopefully, the Senate can clean up the fiduciary issues that are very problematic. They are problematic. I wouldn't diminish those issues whatsoever. And of course, I must close on something that is very personal to me, because we've all been through it here. Everybody at one time or another was a freshman. So when a freshman gets up on this floor and says, well, it's because I'm a freshman, please don't say that, because it's quite obvious to us.
Would any other member wish to speak on the bill before anybody wants a second bite at the apple? The member from Hennepin, Representative Hertas.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I wanted to talk about this bill and the discourse that's gone on today. And I just wanted to comment about the abundant knowledge and wealth of information that each of these members in this body have to contribute with regard to the decisions we make on legislation. Representative Elkin, I appreciated the fact that you got up and talked about your 10 years in the industry, and you were giving your testimony and your professional expertise and your opinion about how this legislation could be influenced by what you had to contribute with those comments. And like Representative Davids just mentioned, I too was thinking about the context of this discussion and debate and some of the comments that have been made, and we should respect each other a little bit more for the contributions that we can contribute, whether you're a builder or whether you're a school teacher or whether you're an insurance agent or whether you're a landlord or a doctor. We are representative and a mirror of the people who send us here. And so we should take what we have to contribute, what we have to offer about legislating, and the comments that other members have seriously. I would also like to comment about the statement made about reinsurance. Reinsurance is not a handout to insurance companies. Reinsurance is there for the explicit purpose of reducing risk and therefore pricing a product more cheaply for the people that we're representing. So with that, members, thanks for the debate. You each will make your own decisions as whether it's time to vote green or red on this, but it certainly has been better than the last few days. Thank you.
Any further discussion on the bill? Any closing comments from the author of the bill? Representative Mann.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So first of all, this bill has nothing to do with government health care and single payer. Just wanted to clear that up. Two is there was a comment earlier made about how first let me say this, currently the PBMs do not have any responsibility to act in the best interest of the health carrier or the patient. So there was a comment earlier made about we're going to make them act in the best interest of the carrier versus the consumer. That's not the truth. We're going to ask them to act in the best interest of the carrier versus themselves, which is what is currently happening. Third, and this is something I said before, but this narrative of this bill doesn't do enough, it doesn't go far enough, or there's an issue with it, so we're going to vote no on it. Well, what you're doing is you're voting to keep the status quo. What you're doing is to keep protecting the billionaires at the expense of the people of the state. That's what it means when things aren't good enough, when you want more from a bill. Because how do you get more if you don't start somewhere? So the reason why I ran for office is because of stories like Representative Hamilton's. Because I could not hear any more stories of people suffering at the hands of billionaires, of big pharma, of PBMs in this country and in this state. And I understand that big pharma is coming after me and has reached out to many of you here and the Minnesota Chamber of Commerce and all those other organizations. And I want it to be very clear that I don't care. And that I am going to stand up for the people that are suffering in my community, and I will not stand up to keep the status quo and to keep protecting people who benefit off of the sick people in this state. I ask for your support.
The clerk will take the roll on the bill. The clerk will close the roll. There being 87 ayes and 42 nays, the bill is passed and its title agreed to. The next bill on the calendar for the day is House File 70. The clerk will report the bill.
House File number 70, number 4 on the calendar for the day, an act relating to public safety, the first engrossment.
There are no amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, House File number 70.
Third reading. I recognize the author of the bill, the member from Ramsey, Representative Kunesh-Podein, to explain her bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, members. Members, we are here because we're problem solvers. We are here to solve the problems in healthcare, in education, agriculture, transportation. We're here to ensure that we are taking the very best care of all of the people that live in Minnesota. But unfortunately in Minnesota and across the nation, we have a really big problem. I want you to imagine that you are a young Native American girl, maybe 13 years old, or a young Native American woman. And your biggest problem should be going to the prom, what should I wear, or planning your future. But unfortunately, for so many of our Native American women, they're working really hard to stay alive by the time they reach their early 30s. This is a real issue. This is a true issue in our Native American communities across the United States, and unfortunately it's here in Minnesota as well. Because the facts are that for all of our mothers, our Native mothers, our aunts, our grandmas, our sisters, their girlfriends, murder is the third leading cause of death for Native American women aged 10 to 24. In some areas, Native American women are murdered at a rate 10 times the national average. And members, what's really hard is that Native American women are assaulted 2.5 to 3.5 times more than any other demographic of women. Native American women, girls, men, boys, and two-spirits, no one exactly knows how many that are victims of this, this violence. Nobody knows how many go missing across the nation or in Minnesota. We don't know how many are dead. This is a real historic endemic, and it is directly linked to a confusing jurisdictional maze, lack of resources, and unfortunately, indifference in many areas. So I'm going to tell you about JoJo Boswell, and maybe some of you heard her sister's testimony in our committee. JoJo went missing in 2005. She was arrested in Hennepin County and taken to Owatonna. When she was released, she called her sister, and that was the last time her sister ever heard from her. On July 11th of that year, when she was released, she never made it back to Minneapolis, and we don't know why. Her sister Dolly reported her missing, but she was told she had to wait another 48 hours by the police. She waited those 48 hours, and it got all jammed up due to the discrepancies in the responsibility between the Owatonna and Minneapolis jurisdictional in the police force. Imagine hearing from a law enforcement when your loved one has gone missing to be told, call me when she returns home. JoJo never returned home. She's never been seen or heard from since that day. I'm going to tell you about Misty. Misty has been at every one of the committees to testify, and she's up in the balcony today. Misty was just 9 years old when she was first assaulted by the boyfriend of her foster mother. When she was 12 years old, she witnessed her grandmother being murdered in front of her, and then she watched her attacker go after her mother and then after her. Misty still has the scars on her hands as she defended herself. When she was 20 years old, she was kidnapped, she was taken over 60 miles from her home, and she was held against her will, was raped, but she finally got away. Misty is from Minnesota. JoJo is from Minnesota. Misty is continuing to fight for Indigenous rights today. And then I want you to remember Savannah Graywin from Fargo, South Dakota. On August 19, 2017, Savannah went missing. She vanished without a trace. She was 8 months pregnant. We, the Native community, are very tightly connected when it comes to social media. We knew about her missing. We heard about it. We read the pleas to please find Savannah. But it was days before the media picked up on that. And they picked up not because it was a Native American girl that went missing, but here was a woman who was pregnant, who's gone missing. So, heartbreakingly, Savannah's body was discovered 8 days later, thrown in the Red River. It was 3 days after her 5-day-old daughter was found in an upstairs apartment building. Savannah's baby had been cut from her womb, kept by this family or this couple, and Savannah's body was just discarded into the river. Closer to home and most recently, Amber Christine Hopkins. I would be really curious to know if any of you have heard her name or if you know her story. Because this happened just this month in January 14th. And Amber was 5 months pregnant when she disappeared. And again, I wonder how many of you know this story. Her body was finally found on March 26th in the backyard of a vacant house in another part of the city from where she lived. I imagine that very few of you are familiar with these tragedies, but unfortunately, it is the story that so many Native American families and communities understand so well. I can't tell you how many of these stories along the way that I have heard. Over a year ago, our last session, I introduced this bill with the help of some of our colleagues along on the other side of the aisle. And I so appreciated the support that all of you gave me and gave all of these victims and this bill as we've gone on. So we have an opportunity at long last to join an international discussion. It's not just local, it's just not national. This is an international issue centered on the disappearance and murders of Indigenous women. Members, we have an opportunity today to be a problem solver. With journalists and activists presenting alarming evidence that can no longer be ignored, I would ask you to join me in demanding accountability. In Minnesota, there are 7 Anishinaabe reservations and 4 Dakota communities. American Indians in Minnesota number approximately over 60,000 or 1.1% of Minnesota's total population. Yet the Urban Indian History Institute ranked Minnesota the 9th highest in the missing and murdered Indigenous women incidences. Research has found that 56% of Native women experience violence in their lifetime. In actuality, those predators of our Native women are not Native men. 9 out of 10 victims designate their assailants to be non-Native assaults. Men who will never be caught, will never be punished, who will continue to do it again and again because they know that Native American women are vulnerable, they're invisible, and they're afraid half the time to report the injustices that are done to them. We know of some of the reasons that so many missing and murdered Indigenous women's cases go unreported, uninvestigated, and unsolved, but we don't know how many women are actually missing or have been murdered. It is estimated that thousands of Native women have disappeared or been killed. And members, we owe it to our Native community. We owe it to this nation to recognize and address this historic trauma. So this bill, House File 70, is the very first step in understanding the significance of our missing and murdered Indigenous communities and bringing an end to this really, really, really horrific violence. It creates a task force to address the violence against Indigenous women, and it defines the standards and requirements of that task force. This task force will be responsible for examining and reporting ways to address the systematic causes behind the violence against Indigenous women. It appropriates methods for tracking and collecting data. It examines government policies and institutions that impact violence against Indigenous women. And it's going to recommend appropriate measures to address the violence and assist the victims and their 11 families. It will also include victims, survivors, Indian community members, and also those that have worked hard with eradicating this violence against women. It will also include membership from all 11 tribes. So we're trying to make the invisible visible. We don't want any more Native American families to worry and wonder if their loved ones will return home when they walk out the door. So members, I'm asking you to be problem solvers. I'm asking you to join me, and I know many of you had. I'm asking you to vote green.
Discussion. The member from Ramsey, Representative Becker-Finn.
Niju Anakwa Dukwe Nadij Nakaz Makwa Nindodem Leech Lake Nindunjaba. Madam Speaker, members, miigwech to all the survivors who have come forward to share their stories, the stories of your murdered mothers and missing sisters. I don't know an Indigenous woman who has not been personally impacted by violence, myself included. Your stories matter, and we hear you. As I shared in the first hearing for this bill last year, my great-grandmother Josephine was brutally murdered as a young mom in my hometown of Cass Lake, leaving behind her children, including my then 5-year-old grandma, my Grandma Alverna. And that trauma impacted my Grandma Alverna her whole life, and it impacts my family today. But the thing is, my family's story is not actually unique. As Representative Kunesh-Podein spoke to, I don't know a Native family that has not been impacted, similarly impacted by violence like mine. The most important part, though, is that my family and every Native family, we are more than our trauma. We are more than sad stories or victims or relics of history. We are survivors. If there is one thing our people are good at, it is surviving in the face of all odds. We are still here. We have always been here, and we will continue to be here in Minnesota. That's what we do. The truth is that the system, the culture we all live in, is more accepting of Indigenous women as victims than as leaders. The truth is that the system is more accepting of Indigenous women as invisible than as speaking up and speaking the truth. And I refuse for that reality to be the continued reality for future generations of Native girls, for my daughter Vida, for Siobhan and Mika and Evie and all the girls we are raising today. I'm using a lot of names today because I do want to make the point that these are real, full human beings with families that we're talking about. They are not just statistics. These are our families and loved ones, our friends and neighbors. And they will be impacted by this issue and this bill. This bill is the first step to working towards making things right and making things better for our Native communities. So for Josephine and my Grandma Alverna and Vida and Siobhan, please vote yes. Chi miigwech.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Hertas.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and Representative Kunesh-Podein. Thank you for bringing this bill forward. When I saw that you had introduced it, I was quick to become a co-author as well. Representative Becker-Finn, thank you for your advocacy on this issue as well. Members, our American culture, we value our women and our children. And we need to do everything we can to protect them and find out what the problems are. Whether it's FGM or whether it's sex trafficking or whether it's pornography or anything else that demeans women, we need to renounce that, and we need to make sure that it ends. This is not a partisan issue, and we want to make sure that you are able to find the problem here and that we address it. Thank you.
The member from Isanti, Representative Johnson.
Madam Speaker, members, this is a serious issue that's happening. And I want to thank Representative Kunesh-Podein for bringing this back again last year. There's a lot of tragedy happening in this situation. But what really unfortunate is this task force should already be running. It should be up and running. It was unfortunately vetoed by Governor Dayton last year. And with what's happening there is very serious. We need to get this task force done. I urge everybody to vote green.
The member from Stearns, Representative O'Driscoll.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. And as many of you know on this House floor, Representative Kunesh-Podein and I grew up 2 blocks from one another in a small city called Sartell. She moved out, I stayed, for whatever that's worth, right, Representative? And her brother and I graduated from high school together. I know the Kunesh family very well. And I also have cousins who are Indigenous. I think about how fortunate my 4 cousins, who are females, who didn't have to go through the tragedy that we're hearing on the House floor today. Last year when I was the chair of the Government Operations Committee and I was looking at bills, I saw Representative Kunesh-Podein's bill. I went to her and I said, we can get you a hearing on that in the Government Operations Committee. And during the busy time of bill hearing, we scheduled a hearing. And as Representative Becker-Finn said, there were witnesses that were brought into that first committee hearing meeting, and we were the first one to hear that. And if you could have heard those stories, they literally would have turned your stomach. It's hard for me to believe that we treat people like this in the 21st century. The brutality that is still tolerated of people against people. It's just unbelievable. And as soon as I had the hearing on this, I went to then Chair Johnson and I said, I know everybody's asking you for money, Representative Johnson, but this one you have to find spot for. We need money in the public safety budget. And I barely got the sentence out of my mouth and he said, we're with you. We'll find a spot for it. As Representative Johnson said, that bill passed off the House floor last year. It was part of the Public Safety Omnibus Bill. This is just another one of those provisions that was in that omnibus bill last year that got vetoed. And here we are, another whole year later having to deal with these kinds of things. Another whole year later where we don't know how many, as the subject of this bill talks about, Indigenous women who are murdered and missing that we don't even know about. I'm hoping that with Governor Walz we have a fresh start and that we look at these kinds of bills on their merits. Members, I can't encourage you enough to vote yes, to do the right thing in the 21st century. Thank you, Madam Speaker and members.
The member from Dakota, Representative Halverson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And Representative Kunesh-Podein, Representative Becker-Finn, for being here. When we heard this bill in committee, in government operations, I started to cry and kind of couldn't stop. not just because of the stories that we heard, which were horrible, but for the fact that we had a path, finally, for these women to speak truth to power. These stories aren't new. These stories have been going on for generations, as Representative Becker-Finn said. But here we are today with Native women representing communities at the Minnesota legislature. And so I was struck so much by the power that bringing new people into our body has made with regard to the conversations that we have and with regard to the differences that we get to make in people's lives. And I'm very proud and very grateful to be able to stand with these women and let our Native sisters know that we see you and we hear you and we care. And I'm very excited to vote yes for you and for generations of women in Minnesota who spent far too much time in the shadows. Thank you.
Further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll on the bill. The clerk will close the roll. There being 128 ayes and 0 nays, the bill is passed and its title agreed to. The next bill on the calendar for the day is House File 2849. The clerk will report the bill.
House File 2849, number 1 on the calendar for the day, an act relating to higher education, the first engrossment.
The member from Anoka, Representative Bernardy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I stand before you today very proud of the work that we have done bipartisanly in the House as well in the Senate. And it's a very important bill because something bad happened to our students this last year. They dedicated countless hours and spent thousands of dollars working towards a degree to help take care of themselves and their families. They were left stranded when Argosy College suddenly closed its doors in March. Because of business decisions, these hardworking Minnesotans were left with no path to graduation, no refund tuition money, not even a warning that it was coming. During a tearful and a very tearful committee hearing, we had to pass Kleenexes out to members as well as in the audience for people who had came there today. And I'm guessing that some are watching today, so we heard you and we're here today to help you. We heard from faculty students whose lives were abruptly turned upside down. A vet tech staff person was there, and she shared with us how she had to scramble to find homes for the animals in their care. An advisor came to work every day having no idea what to tell their students. Dental hygienist students came before us, and they were literally weeks away from graduation. They had 6 weeks of clinicals to go, and they had job offers waiting for them that they had to turn down because they weren't going to be able to complete their degree on time. Just imagine that hard work, sacrificing time and money, making classes fit into your work and family life, and heading toward an attainable goal, and having the rug ripped out from underneath you. That's what these students went through. Through the hard work of many members in this body from both sides of the aisle, our Office of Higher Education and their incredible staff, and commissioner in several higher education institutions around the state, almost every one of these students has a pathway to their future. I want to thank staff that have been involved in this, as well as the members who have signed on to various licensing and accreditation board and our federal counterpart letters that we have written to help these students. Thank you very much. Because of the hard work, nearly every student will be able to continue their coursework, finish their clinical hours, and take the next steps towards their dream career. But the work is not finished. The company that owned Argosy was called Dream Center Educational Holdings. They took student grant money from the state, intended for students, but held it for themselves. This bill would give the Office of Higher Education the authority to grant spring semester living miscellaneous expenses money directly to the students it was intended for. It also allows the students to be released from student debt loans for spring of 2019. This money is not taken out of the general fund and does not affect our targets that we will be getting shortly. This is one-time fix for this unique situation. Keep in mind, members, this is only the first step of this fix. This bill is important to pass quickly and so that we can make the students whole and get those dollars into their hands so that they can move on and finish their degrees and move on to their future. It's the least we can do. Going forward in the interim, we will be working together for a long-term fix to ensure this situation cannot happen again in the state of Minnesota. We all value education in Minnesota, and we encourage our students to attain degrees and certifications wherever they can. Let's not let the irresponsible business decisions of one company dash the hopes of the education of our Minnesota students. Vote yes to make these students whole. Thank you, Madam Chair and members. I stand for questions.
There are no amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, House File Number 2849.
Third reading. Discussion to the bill. Representative Miller.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm wondering if Representative Bernardy would yield for a question.
She will yield. Representative Miller.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker and Representative Bernardy. This is just a clarifying thing for me. Are there any legal proceedings that by the state or federal government that is going after whoever the principals are with Argosy on this issue?
Representative Bernardy.
Madam Chair, Madam Speaker, excuse me, and it's Representative Miller, right? Okay, I just wanted to be sure I got that right. That the Attorney General is investigating this, as well as the Office of Higher Education has taken action as well in different ways of getting students' records, and they will be moving forward to try to recollect this money.
Representative Miller.
Okay, thank you, Madam Speaker, and thanks for that answer. Members, I kind of have a concern. I'm going to be supporting this. I'm going to vote green. I think we need to take care of this problem, but I have kind of a concern that we need to make sure that there's things in place that this doesn't happen again, so that we can take care of the problem after the fact. I think we need to have, and I don't know what that looks like, but this is a very concern for me that, because I know some of these private companies that have been higher education have closed in recent years. They've gone out of business, and we've heard this, and this is going to become, I don't want to see this as us fixing the problem after the fact, and we can do something about it. So I think hopefully that's happening coming out of this, that not only some lessons were learned, but also some fixes will be put in place so that something like this doesn't happen again. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The member from Fillmore, Representative Davids.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker. Would Representative Liebling yield for a question?
She's not in the chamber at the moment. Representative Davids.
She's not on the floor. Okay. Representative Bernardy, great bill. Great bill. I can't imagine what these people went through when, it was hard enough for me to graduate the way it was, let alone having my school closed down on me. And it's put some people in some really, really bad situations. And I think the work you've done on this has been exemplary. But you piqued my interest when you said targets would be out shortly. Could you advise the body on that?
Representative Bernardy.
Actually, I cannot advise you on that. I'm just hopeful.
Any further discussion on the bill relating to higher education? Seeing no further discussion, would the author of the bill like to close? The clerk will take the roll. The clerk will close the roll. There being 125 ayes and 0 nays, the bill is passed and its title agreed to. Announcement by the Speaker.
Announcement by the Speaker. The Speaker announces the appointment of the following members of the House to a conference committee on House Bill number 148, an act relating to health. Hewitt, Freiberg, and Backer.
Announcements. Representative Winkler.
Madam Speaker, I move that when the House adjourns today, it adjourns until 10 a.m. Friday, May 10th, 2019.
Representative Winkler moves that when the House adjourns today, it adjourns until 10 a.m. Friday, May 10th, 2019. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. The motion prevails. Representative Winkler.
Madam Speaker, I move that the House do now adjourn.
Representative Winkler moves that the House do now adjourn. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. The motion prevails. The House stands adjourned until 10 a.m. Friday, May 10th, 2019. And we already adjourned the joint convention, so I don't need to do that again, right? The motion prevailed. The House is adjourned.